Have you ever heard the story of a country that, when faced with a catastrophic financial crisis, decided to let its biggest banks fail? It sounds like a recipe for disaster, but for one small island nation, it was the start of an incredible comeback. This is the story of Iceland and its radical response to the 2008 global financial meltdown. For a long time, Iceland was known for its volcanoes, glaciers, and a quiet, fishing-based economy. But in the early 2000s, things changed dramatically. The government deregulated the financial sector, privatizing its three main banks, Kaupthing, Landsbanki, and Glitnir. What followed was a spectacle of ambition and risk. These newly private banks went on an international borrowing spree, offering high-interest online savings accounts that attracted billions from across Europe. They used this mountain of cash to fund aggressive global expansion, investing in everything from British football clubs to Danish department stores. On paper, Iceland was booming. It seemed like a tiny nation had cracked the code to infinite wealth. The bank's assets grew to an astonishing 10 times the size of the entire country's GDP. To put that in perspective, imagine if a single American bank had assets worth over $200 trillion. It was a classic bubble, fueled by cheap credit and a belief that the party would never end. Icelandic bankers became international jet-setters, and ordinary citizens took out huge loans in foreign currencies to buy new cars and homes. The national currency, the krona, was strong, and life felt good. But underneath the surface, the whole system was a house of cards. Then, in September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the global credit market froze overnight. The river of cheap money that had been flowing into Iceland suddenly dried up. The Icelandic banks couldn't roll over their massive short-term debts. Panic set in. People in the UK and the Netherlands who had saved their life's earnings in those high-interest Icelandic accounts rushed to withdraw their money. But the money wasn't there. The banks were insolvent. This is where the story takes a turn you wouldn't expect. Most countries, including the United States and the UK, rushed to bail out their too-big-to-fail banks with taxpayer money. The logic was that letting them collapse would trigger a complete economic apocalypse. Iceland faced the same choice, but there was one major difference. Its banks weren't just too big to fail. They were too big to save. The government simply didn't have the money to cover their gargantuan debts. Bailing them out would have bankrupted the entire nation for generations. So, Iceland's leaders made a historic and controversial decision. They passed emergency legislation. Let the big three banks go bankrupt, and prioritize protecting domestic depositors over foreign creditors. Essentially, they chose to save the people, not the banks. The government told its international creditors, many of whom were large hedge funds and foreign banks, that they would have to take the loss. This was a radical move. The British government was so furious that it used anti-terrorism laws to freeze Icelandic assets in the UK, a move that Icelanders saw as a profound betrayal. The immediate aftermath was brutal. Icelandic krona lost over half its value almost overnight. Inflation skyrocketed. The stock market was wiped out. Imports became incredibly expensive, and many people who had taken out those foreign currency loans saw their debts double. The country was in a state of shock, facing what looked like a national bankruptcy. Protests erupted in Reykjavik as people banged pots and pans outside the parliament, demanding accountability. It was a period of immense hardship and uncertainty. It's known as the Pots and Pans Revolution. But here's where Iceland's resilience shines through. The collapse of the krona, while painful, had an unintended silver lining. Suddenly, Icelandic exports became extremely cheap for the rest of the world. The country's two traditional economic pillars, fishing and aluminum smelting, saw a massive boost. Fishermen were getting paid in valuable foreign currency for their catch, which was now worth a fortune in the devalued local krona. At the same time, another industry was about to explode. That weak krona made Iceland an incredibly affordable and attractive tourist destination. Suddenly, a trip to see the northern lights or the Blue Lagoon was within reach for many more people. The tourism boom that followed was nothing short of spectacular. It brought in a flood of foreign currency, created new jobs, and became a powerful engine for recovery. It was almost as if the volcanic landscapes themselves were helping to rescue the economy. Iceland also took steps to hold people accountable. Unlike in many other countries where top bankers walked away relatively unscathed, Iceland prosecuted and jailed several key banking executives for their roles in the crisis. This pursuit of justice was a crucial part of the national healing process. The public needed to see that the architects of the disaster faced real consequences. So, how did it all turn out? Remarkably well. By implementing capital controls to stabilize the currency and focusing on its core industries, Iceland's economy began to rebound much faster than anyone predicted. The government managed to pay back its emergency loans from the IMF ahead of schedule. Unemployment fell, and the economy started growing again. While the road was bumpy, Iceland had navigated the storm without selling out its citizens to save the banks. The key lesson from Iceland's experience is a powerful one. It challenges the too-big-to-fail doctrine that has dominated global finance. Iceland showed that there is an alternative to socializing bank losses while privatizing their profits. It demonstrated that when a crisis hits, protecting the public and the real economy should be the priority, even if it means powerful international investors lose money. It's a lesson about national sovereignty and the courage to choose a different path. Of course, Iceland's situation was unique. It's a small, homogeneous country with its own currency, which gave it flexibility that Eurozone countries, for example, don't have. But its story still serves as a fascinating case study. It reminds us that economic orthodoxy isn't always the only answer, and that sometimes the boldest move is the smartest one. Today, Iceland is thriving. The scars of the crisis remain, but the country has emerged stronger, more diversified, and perhaps a little wiser. The story of its financial fallout and recovery is a testament to the resilience of its people and a powerful reminder that when banks gamble and lose, it shouldn't always be the public that pays the price. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shape our world. See you next time.